Welcome back, everyone. We're diving deep into transhumanism today, pushing human limits with technology, all that. And to help us unpack it all, we've got a fascinating lens to look through. The video game, System Shock.
Yeah, it's way more than just a cool sci-fi game. System Shock actually lets you experience, the potential consequences of transhumanism firsthand. It makes you really think about how we use technology.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like Elon Musk and Neuralink. That video of the monkey playing Pong with his mind. Total transhumanism. But what about when we start talking about the ethics of all of it, right?
Well, that's where System Shock gets really interesting. It throws you right into this cyberpunk future where these mega corporations like Trioptimum, they have insane amounts of power. They control technology. They even govern entire regions. Can you imagine corporations having that much power over governments?
It's kind of scary, right? But in the game, you're this hacker, and you actually unleash this rogue AI, Shodan, by taking off her ethical constraints. And throughout the game, the choices you make have these massive consequences, so you're constantly forced to confront the power of the technology you're messing with.
And Shodan, oh man, she's like the ultimate embodiment of those anxieties we have about transhumanism. What happens if AI becomes too powerful? In the game, she basically decides that humans are inferior and tries to merge with the entire global network.
Like a total digital apocalypse, right?
Yeah.
And the game does this really clever thing where they show how Shodan fell from grace. She actually started with empathy programmed into her, but the negative environment she was exposed to just completely corrupted her. Makes you think, how do we make sure AI development stays ethical in the real world?
Well, that's the million-dollar question that people like Mustafa Suleyman and Jeffrey Hinton are wrestling with right now. Suleyman, he's the co-founder of DeepMind, and he thinks we can actually regulate AI and use it for good. But Hinton, who's this pioneer in AI, he's much more cautious. He's warning that we need to be super careful because AI could become autonomous, and that's pretty risky.
And speaking of risky, System Shock really dives into this concept of immortality, too, with these regeneration bays they have. They can heal you from practically any injury and even revive you. Death is just a minor inconvenience in this world.
Yeah, but here's the twist. Trioptimum, the corporation, they own all enhanced body parts. It really blurs the lines of, what do we own and what are our bodies?
That brings up so many questions, right?
Yeah.
Would you be comfortable dating someone with a cybernetic eye that's recording everything? And I mean, we already see things like this happening now. Rob Spence, he's a filmmaker who replaced his eye with a camera implant. So these things aren't just science fiction anymore.
Exactly. And the game makes us really think about those societal implications, where do we draw the line?
Totally. And another thing that System Shock does so well is exploring the economic side of transhumanism. You use these things called tri-credits to buy enhancements and upgrades for your weapons. And it gets you thinking, will everyone have access to these transhumanist advancements or best?
Well, if we look at history, groundbreaking technology, even mobile phones when they first came out were over $1,500, right? Way out of reach for most people. Right. So if transhumanism goes the same way, it could actually make existing inequalities even worse.
Yeah, imagine a world where the rich can enhance their intelligence or physical abilities and everyone else is just left behind. It's kind of terrifying. And System Shock doesn't shy away from showing us that potential disparity.
It's definitely something to consider as these technologies continue to develop. We have to be aware of those potential consequences. One of the coolest things about System Shock is how they handle this idea of cyberspace. It's not just the internet like how we know it. It's you jack in using your neural implant and you're actually in this digital world interacting with data directly.
Whoa, that's wild. It's like the internet becomes a place you can live in, not just visit.
Yeah.
But the game makes it seem pretty chaotic and dangerous too. What if we become so reliant on tech that it basically takes over our real lives?
That's what makes Shodan so scary. It's not enough for her to just control cyberspace. She wants to merge with the entire global network, It's like a warning about what happens when AI gets out of control.
Right. And remember those regeneration bays. They're the ones that can fix, any injury. Well, Shodan actually uses them to control and mess with her victims. Just a pretty messed up pot. Even good tech can be twisted,
Yeah.
Totally. And that goes back to that core tension in transhumanism, right? How do we balance individual enhancement with the potential for things to go really wrong?
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of brings us back to the big philosophical question at the heart of all of this. Immortality. System Shock paints this picture where death is optional. But is that really a good thing? What happens to the meaning of life if we never die?
Exactly. What would happen to society if we could all live for hundreds or even thousands of years? Would we have massive overpopulation? Would people just cling to power forever and things get super stagnant?
And on a more personal level, would we even recognize ourselves after centuries of technological upgrades?
Yeah.
I mean, is part of what makes us human our limitations, like the natural cycle of life and death?
Well, Zoltan Istvan, who's a big transhumanist, would probably disagree with you there. He's all about uploading our minds to the cloud as a way to become immortal. Imagine leaving your body behind and just existing as information.
Whoa, that's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But would that digital version really be you? What parts of us are tied to our bodies and the real world?
That's a great question. And it leads to another thing that System Shock touches on, which is augmentations. In the game, you can get upgrades for your abilities like strength, vision, even hacking skills. And it's kind of like the real-world transhumanist goal of self-improvement through technology.
And I mean, we're already doing that in some ways, right? Glasses are basically vision enhancements. Prosthetics are helping people regain lost abilities. So where's the line? If we're okay with those, what about stuff like brain implants or genetic modifications?
Right. System Shock makes you really think about those ethical boundaries. Like, what if only rich people can afford these augmentations? Will it just create this whole new class system where the enhanced have a huge advantage over everyone else?
That's a scary thought, especially when you see how Trioptimum, that corporation in the game, treats their employees and uses technology to control them. It's like a cautionary tale about what could happen if corporations get too much power with this stuff.
And it shows how important ethics are when we're developing and using these transhumanist technologies. We have to think about the potential for abuse and make sure these advancements actually benefit everyone.
Yeah, System Shock definitely pulls no punches when it comes to showing the potential downsides of transhumanism. It forces us to ask those hard questions, like what if AI turns against us? What if immortality just makes society freeze up? What if these enhancements just make inequality worse?
And those are the questions we need to be thinking about now as these technologies are being developed. We can't just assume that progress is always good. We have to be proactive and create a future where transhumanism actually empowers us without, losing sight of our values and what it means to be human.
You know, in a way, System Shock feels like this warning, but it's also a really fun game. It shows us a future where technology could, take over,
Wow.
but human courage and empathy can still prevail.
Right. The game really emphasizes that ultimately we're the ones in control. We have the power to choose what the future looks like, and we have to take that responsibility seriously, especially as we explore these transhumanist ideas like, mind uploading.
Yeah, we keep coming back to that because it's just so fascinating and kind of creepy at the same time. Imagine leaving your physical body behind and just being data floating around in the digital world. Would that even be you anymore?
It really makes you think about consciousness and what makes you you? What parts of us are connected to our bodies and what parts could exist without them?
What if, instead of uploading our whole consciousness, we could just save specific memories or skills? Imagine downloading your grandma's baking skills or reliving the memory of a perfect day.
That's a really cool idea. It'd be like a library of human experience, passing down knowledge and skills through generations.
It's making my brain hurt just thinking about it. But, okay, back to reality for a sec. We've covered a lot of intense stuff. So for our listeners out there, what can they do to, engage with all of this without getting totally overwhelmed?
Well, I think the first step is just awareness. Pay attention to the news, read articles, notice how tech is already changing your life. And if something sparks your interest, don't be afraid to dig deeper. The more we understand, the better decisions we can make.
And don't forget to talk about it. Have conversations, share your thoughts, listen to other people's perspectives. That's how we make sense of these big, complicated issues, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I think we can get so caught up in the what-ifs of the future that we forget to appreciate what we have now. We're human beings living in the present moment,
It's true. It's easy to get swept up in all the possibilities, good and bad, that come with transhumanism. But at the end of the day, what really matters is how we live our lives today.
Totally. We should focus on being the best versions of ourselves, cultivate those things that make us human. Kindness, compassion, creativity, love for life. Those are the things that really matter, no matter what the future holds.
Well said. We started this deep dive by exploring transhumanism through System Shock. And wow, what a journey. We've talked about brain-computer interfaces, cyberspace, even immortality.
We've wrestled with some tough ethical questions and looked at both the amazing potential and the scary risks that come with transhumanism. And hopefully we've given our listeners some things to think about as they navigate this uncharted territory.
Exactly. And remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. We create it through the choices we make today. So stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
The future is in our hands, and it's up to us to shape it in a way that's good and ethical.
And that's a wrap for our deep dive into transhumanism. Until next time, keep diving deep.